Hey, care group leaders, we love you guys. I just want to tell you how encouraged I am by what God is doing in our groups. I've been able to sit down and chat with a few of you, and if there's just any way that I can speak life and hope and encouragement into you, I would just say that God has been really faithful. Through the Nehemiah series, through your leadership, through Christian community, people are being transformed. Marriages are growing strong. Families are being healed and reconciled. And the good news of the gospel is ringing out in practical, everyday ways in our workplaces, in our schools. Thank you for what you do. I want to share a quick story with you I thought was real neat. I was meeting with one of our group leaders, and there was a gal that was talking about maybe getting involved in the group. And she said, well, I occasionally go to church on a Sunday, at another church. Is it okay if I get involved with you? And the group leader said, if you're not involved in community, then you're not part of a church. We'd love for you to get involved. But Sunday morning is a supplement to Christian community, to accountability, to friendship and fellowship and all of life together as God's people. And so I love it. I'm encouraged by what you guys are doing, and I just want to, again, strengthen you guys by saying that you are fulfilling the Great Commission. Jesus said, go forth and make disciples. And we believe that care groups are the best way of doing that. So thank you for being obedient to Jesus' final command and for making disciples. I know sometimes it's hard, thankless work, and we don't always see the results, but I want you to know that having kind of a wider picture of our group's ministry, God is really blessing your faithful, consistent, diligent work. So thank you guys. Now, we're going to continue on in the Nehemiah series. This is going to be week 6. Pastor Michael and Pastor John are going to be preaching the messages at Heritage Park in Philida respectfully, and then we will be hitting this issue of opposition and generosity. So we're going to be in Nehemiah 5, verses 1 through probably about 13, and we're going to look at this topic of opposition and generosity. So let me give you a few of the questions that we'll be going through. Nehemiah 5, 1 through 5 starts with disunity and conflict amongst God's people in Jerusalem. And so we see the importance of unity in these very first verses. And my question for your groups is this: why is Christian unity so important to the heart of God? What does it show about the character and nature of God as He exists in triunity for all eternity? What is it about our unity that shows forth the character, the attributes of God? Then what does Christian unity symbolize to the watching world? Why is our unity as brothers and sisters in faith, what does it show to those who don't know Jesus, to those who are maybe even hostile towards the faith? Then the next question is, what does Christian unity accomplish? So as you think through your group, our church, even our wider community, what is it that we can uniquely accomplish when we work together that we can't when we're disunified? Pastor Michael says it this way: God blesses us through one another. So there are certain things that are only accomplished when we are in community, unified, loving, caring, strengthening one another. Then he goes on, the disunity of God's people in Jerusalem was caused by some horrible injustice within the community. We see the nobles are oppressing the common people. They're extorting them. They're taking their money. They're overtaxing them. They're not working with the common people. And so this was cause for disunity. What are some causes for disunity that we see in our church body? It's really important to recognize areas where there might be friction, where there might be tension, where there might be disunity. And it's really important, even though it's difficult, it's really important to recognize those things in your care group as well. So the question is, how can we guard our community against falling into disunity over inconsequential or secondary matters? And we see this all the time. I had a gal in one of my care groups who was saying how much she loved Summit View Church because she came from a very fundamentalist, very strict church. You had to wear dresses, you couldn't wear earrings. I mean, there was all sorts of strange secondary rules that were really almost oppressive in nature. And so how can we be really careful to avoid things of that nature. And this is really important for your care groups. I have talked with folks who come into a care group, and everyone in that group is of a particular political leaning, and they feel immediately isolated. And so what does it look like for us to be unified over primary matters? Jesus is King. He's rose from the grave. Forgiveness is in His name. And then how can we have unity? It doesn't mean that we all agree, doesn't mean uniformity, but how can we have unity when there's tension, when there's different personalities and different political views and different preferences? So that's a really important question to dialogue with your groups about. And then it goes on a little bit. Why does Nehemiah tell the Hebrew nobles and officials to walk in the fear of the Lord? They were being oppressive, they were being greedy, they were being unjust. Nehemiah says, fear the Lord, because sin is not merely our relationship with others, but it always has a vertical element to it. What we believe about God extends to how we treat others. So the question is this: what is the relationship between behavior and belief? Guys, this is so important for you and your people. This is something God's been teaching me over the last few weeks, and I really want you to think about this, all right? I believe that our push, especially as leaders, should not be to tell people to try harder, but it should be to encourage people to believe differently. Belief motivates and shapes behavior. And so if you're like me, when you hear somebody say something in group, you immediately want to go, like, I'll give you an example. Oh, I don't have any time to read the Bible. I don't have any time to pray. And you immediately want to go, you need to practice the Sabbath. You need to get a schedule. You need to get your life on, and you go right into behavior management, which there's certainly a place for schedules. There's certainly a place for that. But the deeper heart issue is, who is king in your life? Who determines how you use your time? What is motivating you? Belief shapes behavior. And we have to get to the level of belief if we want to shape people fundamentally into followers of Jesus Christ. There's a few more questions about greed and how we identify it in our own life. One of my encouragements for you is, I know we got a limited amount of time, so do the best you can in identifying questions that would be most helpful for your people. Other thing I want to let you know as well is that a few of you have said, well, there seems to be sometimes a discrepancy between the questions we have and what Michael or John will say on a Sunday morning. And I recognize that. Oftentimes the Spirit can tug on a speaker's heart at the last minute, and we can go a real different direction. So one of the things I want to encourage you to is, if you go to summitview.net, you go into the Nehemiah sermon page, you can enter your information and get sent the sermon notes, the speaker's sermon notes from each Sunday, so you can have those as well. Those are real helpful as you are trying to put together some discussion for your group. So as always, we love you guys. So thankful for what God is doing in us and through us. The kingdom is advancing, and I hope you are encouraged. We will see you on Sunday.